Thank you. Madam Chancellor, Chair of the Board of Governors, Mr. Vice Chancellor, graduating students, and honored guests. It is my pleasure and privilege to introduce you to our honorary degree recipient this afternoon, Christina Louise Logue. Louise is a justice of the peace, a nurse, a manager, a director, and an expert in mental health and crime reduction. But she is also much more than that. She is also a loyal friend, a mom, a nana, and most importantly, a role model. Ms. Logue is a proud woman of Algonquin heritage, recognized internationally for her expertise in reducing crime and increasing mental health awareness. She has worked for the Ottawa Police Service since 1994. She's developed early identification and early intervention strategies for police services and educators on an international scale. Her commitment to community has shown itself in her work for community-based programs such as Project Early Intervention, which helps young people who are at risk of being recruited to street gangs. She has spent years working with incarcerated youth, eventually creating and implementing a crucial substance abuse treatment program. Her studies in behavioral pharmacology complement her expertise as a certified addictions counselor, certified functional family therapist, and court-approved street drug expert. Maybe her most notable community work includes her time in the remote northern Quebec community of Tisabi. It's here that she helps doctors and nurses working in the community which is suffering from suicide and substance abuse, two mental health issues that she has worked steadily on for decades. She has received the Governor General of Canada Award of Merit, Order of Ontario, Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal for Public Service, Quality of Life Award, and Woman of Distinction Award. But my friend Christina Louise Logue maintains that her proudest titles are Mom and Nana. Her work with communities has had a ripple effect across the country. Her time, dedication, and passion has resulted in lower victimization rates and increased quality of life across Canada, particularly in the North. Ms. Chancellor, in recognition of her outstanding contributions and leadership in achieving change in social, health, and economic conditions of Indigenous peoples and at-risk children, youth, and families, I request to confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, upon Christina Louise Logue.
It's an honor to do this. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Governors and upon the recommendation of University Senate, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Now I know how you guys feel. Glad to see my second son made it here on time. Didn't think I could see that far, but I can. Madam Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chancellor, graduates, honored guests, Mom, John and Jim, Lizzie, Dud, and friends. I want to start by acknowledging that we gather on the traditional and unceded land of my great nation, the Algonquin Anishinaabe People's Land. What an absolute honor it is for me to be afforded the opportunity to address you, the graduates of 2019. Today certainly puts a punctuation mark on the many, many sleepless nights studying, countless hours writing reports, those precious few social hours, cheering on perhaps your champion Ravens teams, or quite simply dancing and mingling about with friends in attempts to release any tension or pressures felt. Yes, years of hard work. I join your faculty, family, and friends in congratulating all of you on your accomplishment today. I'm doubly honored to have been conferred with an honorary Doctor of Law degree today, and to have been conferred this great honor in the presence of my sons, my sister, and my elderly mother, who's actually waited 62 years for this to happen. Most of you parents out there thought 4 years was a long time. My connection to Carleton U dates way back to a time that predates cell phones and information so gratuitously obtained today on the World Wide Web was only found in textbooks or publications, or actually obtained from face-to-face discussions, but not on a screen, actually in person. Yes, those were different times back then. I had the privilege early on in my career of collaborating with so many Carleton U academics. Drs. Jane Dixon, who's joined me here today as well, Dr. Roberta Sinclair, Jen Van de Ven, Dawn Andrews, Linda Robertson, Craig Dowden, and I could name so many more that I met throughout my work over the years, and the Professor Emeritus, Dr. Robert Hogue. Together, their research and work in criminal psychology has positively impacted the lives of thousands of children and families that I was then blessed to intersect with at the front lines. To this day, I continue to collaborate with Dr. Hogue, who, despite having retired a few years back, continues to inspire daily, and with Dr. Jane Dixon, who is spearheading some of the most major positive changes for Indigenous peoples in our justice systems across Canada. This evening, though, I've been given 5 minutes to share a few words of wisdom. Now, I've written a lot of speeches over the last 42 years, and I've delivered several speeches. But I can tell you the short speeches are the hardest to write. So I know that some of you might be expecting a more traditional speech, but today I want to speak to you from my heart. So here goes. There were so many lessons in life I learned on my current 40-year journey. As a professional, all of them relative, and all of them carried their own significance. But today, I only have time to highlight one, and that is I'm going to invite you from here on in, disregard the naysayers. Seek to do good out there and not just look good. Y'all look great, but seek to do great. When I graduated as a nurse, I knew I had accomplished something that brought great joy to my parents. I also felt the immense responsibility that being a registered nurse brought with it. Since then, I've helped deliver several babies. I've held the hands of palliative care patients as they drew their final breaths. I comforted families whose loved ones passed. I consoled mothers whose children were runaways and others whose youth completed suicides. I helped restart 4 hearts when they stopped breathing. I held children found abandoned and others who were neglected and abused. And I made sure, and let me emphasize, I made damn sure that each and every one of them felt that they were lovable, that they were valued, and that their lives mattered. While I knew I would always have a fairly good job as a nurse, what I had not anticipated was just how rewarding this job would be. I opted to practice in the field of adolescent mental health years ago, 40 years ago. Anybody see One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? That's what it was like in adolescent mental health back then. So my choice wasn't a popular one with most of my friends or cousins that had graduated as nurses as well. In fact, some told me that I would be throwing my nursing career away by choosing to work with adolescents in mental health services. But I got to sit with young offenders in cell blocks, isolation rooms, and hospital emergency rooms. And with the police, I pounded the pavement night after night for 20 years, looking for wayward youth enmeshed in human trafficking circles, and many others who chose to self-medicate with powerful street drugs. I met with countless street gang members across Canada and the US, and did what I could to get them reconnected to more conventional lifestyles. I can tell you that I advocated hard to effect change in how police services intersect with antisocial youth to this date, and to get child protection and group homes to open their minds to addressing the root causes of acting out youth rather than simply dealing with them as bad kids. I was blessed with many opportunities to advocate across Canada for timely, meaningful, and appropriate judicial responses to youth crime, and did so at a time when the naysayers vocalized their discontent with my efforts, referring to me as being someone who is rather soft on crime. But that mattered not to me. Despite many labeling me as being a left-wing dreamer, what mattered to me was standing up for that which was just and right always, and never allowing the criticisms of others to define me, nor dictate the path I chose to walk down in my advocacy for changes in the treatment of youth afflicted with mental health. I stood for the science in criminal psychology that was actually developed by the amazing academics right here at Carleton University, Dr. Hogue, Dr. Andrews, and others. And so I encourage all of you to take time after this celebration to determine what it is you hope to accomplish in your career as you start your professional journeys. I encourage you all to take time to look and live with the world around you and know always that you, as the power of one, can and will make a difference in the lives of many if you choose to do so. In a letter to his brother, Vincent van Gogh once wrote, "Throughout my pain and suffering, I've developed a soul." And I can tell you that's exactly how I felt, helping those as a nurse whose voices were often silenced or disregarded. Had I listened to the naysayers, I would have never become a mental health nurse. In closing, I want to share a quick story with you so as to punctuate some of these notions. Back in the early 1980s, I became a single mom of two beautiful boys, aged 2 and 3 years at the time. Something I never shared with them, I'm going to share now. They're both here. I felt afraid back then. I felt alone, and I felt overwhelmed. Being a divorced mom somehow meant that I was a failure, because that's what people said. Back then, you couldn't, as a single mom, go out on your own and get a loan. You had to have a husband or some other male sign for you. At that time, I was told that mine was a broken family. Some parents back then even refused to permit their children to play with my boys because we were from a broken family. In fact, even the research, because back then I was still studying, and all the research, all the speakers would get up and say, well, you know, single mothers out there with these children, you know, their children are at greater risk of becoming criminals. Well, that was all very frightening to read. I ended up laughing about it because I knew darn well that ours was not a broken family at all. I raised my boys alone with the support of their loving grandmother, my mother, and the love of my sister and my brother-in-law, our family. I raised them to have morals, values, and ethics that reflected our ancestors' 7 sacred teachings, that being love, courage, humility, wisdom, honesty, and truth, and respect. Sure, we struggled, and of course there were many letdowns when I just couldn't afford to give them what other kids were getting so freely. My boys had to make many sacrifices. They had to do with much less, and of course they had to earn all they would wish for, including sports activities, cool clothing, travel, and even their post-secondary education. But they never once complained nor whined about any of it. They suffered their sacrifices silently and with dignity, and they applied themselves. They taught me so much about how rich we really were because we had each other. They never, ever, once, ever made me feel like I was a failure to them because I was a single mom. Today, my sons are very successful. The one who is late is actually a Crown prosecutor, John Ramsey. He has 3 university degrees, and the other a local police investigator and self-taught cinematographer, James Ramsey. He actually also happens to own and operate a drone photography business known as skytography.ca. So I am so honored to be standing here today in their presence. Sons, I hope I make you as proud of me as I am of you. And I say with all sincerity, if I could start all over again, I wouldn't change a thing about our life together. And can I just add in there, I know I tell you all the time, empty nest syndrome sucks. So you can come home anytime you want. Bring your wives, that's fine. I share this with all of you so that you know that along your journey, you will encounter roadblocks, naysayers, critics, and pessimists. You may even fall flat on your face. And that hurts, but don't let it stop you. Don't be afraid of failure. Failing will provide you with opportunity to prove what you're made of. Prove it to yourself. Never let the naysayers keep you down. After all, it's the getting up again that renders your soul stronger. Enjoy your journey, for it is truly over in the blink of an eye. Make your journey count. And remember always that you, each one of you, are the living message that your parents and educators are sending forth to a time that they will never see. Make your life matter by seeking to do good, despite any challenge. I join your family and friends and congratulate each and every one of you for all your hard work in reaching today's success. Thank you.